Welcome to the Romanian River channel and my impressions of Imperator Rome, a game by Paradox Games developed in-house if I'm not mistaken, which has had a lovely amount of history already behind it, what with only about 3 months since its launch, approximately. Now, this is not a first impressions, mostly because the game itself has changed quite a fair bit and is still changing at the time of this video, and to be honest, having a first impressions of the original shape of the game, it was basically something in between Stellaris and Europa Universalis. Now it's actually closer to something like Europa Universalis, a wee bit of Stellaris, and an increasing amount of Crusader Kings, and that's not gonna change anytime soon either. Basically, this video itself will be my 2 cents, or more or less, on the game itself, and if it's worth even keeping an eye on, considering all the drama that's been behind it so far, and what's been done. Now, in its initial form, as I mentioned earlier, it was more or less something in between Stellaris and Europa Universalis. A wee bit of Crusader Kings was in there, so much in the plots and character-driven events that could happen if you pissed off enough characters simultaneously. But this was more or less relegated to your own faction or country, more precisely. Like, for example, as you can see in the background, more than likely, I'm playing Gab.ai, and I only played Gab.ai for about 30 hours. The whole time approximately I spent with the game from the moment I got access to it to the present day. And with the Gab.ai, the tribal form of government, settled tribe or sedentary tribe, however you want to say it. Lovely that there's a plane in the background, but yeah, you know things are off the cuff when that's going down in the background. As I was saying, with the more sedentary tribe type, you'd get each tribal chieftain, which Dacia has about 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of every game, but they can increase or decrease depending on your own actions. You can actually exterminate tribes if you want to do that. You could do that even in version 1.0, and now it's a bit more complicated to do it, but not hard. Still fairly easily done, considering it's more or less a totalitarian type setup, though a totalitarian type setup wherein the tribal chieftains, if they, how should I put this, conspire in sufficient number against you, they can cause a royal shitstorm. In 1.0 I actually had to deal with about 3 to 4 civil wars in the games I tried up until I actually learned how to get along with the game itself. Even in the final game I did in 1.0, I still had to deal with a civil war, which, thankfully enough, was just one pissed off dude with not much military support. And granted, that was one of the bugs, more or less, with 1.0, because he popped with about 500 men in the middle of nowhere, with 2 territories, I think. And yes, he got promptly stomped by about 11,000 soldiers coming in on his ass. Since that point, I actually took a couple of months break, because that whole lovely storm of events happened around the game. Because yeah, I get it, the game itself was significantly easy, and in terms of my enjoyment of it. I mean, for example, in Stellaris you can brute force certain things to take care of handicaps you have as a strategic player. For example, like if you get enough energy now with the Galactic Market, you can actually shore up and work around your own tendencies. Like, for example, me personally, I'm more of a turtle type, and Imperator Rome played more towards that sort of stuff. You could use the favor political power or oratory power or military power and so on to actually use more or less as a crutch for stupid decisions, so you didn't get wailed on profusely. And especially when trying to take over new territories, you had to make sure the population was assimilated and converted. Not much in room in terms of, having a diverse population. They would be more rebellious, more predisposed to basically going like, yeah, that guy wants to remove you, we're gonna throw behind him. And since that period of time, the game's actually gone more towards the Crusader Kings, as I mentioned earlier, and they've been slowly but surely stripping out the workarounds. That means, personally, the game went from somewhat enjoyable, even quite a wee bit enjoyable to be precise, but that's from my perspective as a gamer who, as I said, likes to turtle up or be aggressive and isn't too much in the whole long-term thinking part. I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's do it, let's kill everything. And as it was, that worked better with my type of gaming. Now, at the current time at the very least, pre-Pompey if I'm not mistaken, because Pompey was the next patch after this one, major one, the characters themselves do their own plots. They can conspire to befriend each other, to rival each other, even assassinate each other, and do other nasty stuff in the background, so you have to keep an eye on that sort of stuff. So that's one of the things more or less ported over from Crusader Kings, which was supposed to be in the 1.0 version, let's be honest. They've kind of removed the dependencies or the crutches, as I said, of the, for example, the oratory power or the religious power, more or less. They've made it so basically now if you screw up at the beginning, you're going to be paying for it quite a bit. Wars are no longer as easy to actually prosecute. Mostly everybody that's anybody has friends in the nearby area, so if you try to prosecute a war directly, you are going to be facing more or less at least a multi-front war, if not a more firm opposition on the front you're planning to go into. So the AI itself, from a diplomatic standpoint, is more consistent. They aren't, allying and de-allying, guaranteeing and de-guaranteeing randomly. They're no longer killing each other just for the hell of it while you watch in the background going like, okay, weaken each other enough so I can kill you all in one fell swoop. But yeah, overall, it's moving more towards the, as I said, Stellaris / Crusader Kings variety. And versus Europa Universalis, it does have a bit more depth in terms of the strategic combat element. You can actually set up your armies a wee bit in terms of what does what. So you basically, with the initial setup default settings, they're not optimal for any army you have for the Geta at the very least. If you want to actually do any sort of combat proper, besides defensive stuff, which does kind of advantage the defender as normal, but still you have to be careful even there. You have to basically go into each army and set up their formations, basically. Not so much in depth like testudos or phalanxes or anything like that, but more or less who goes where. Who's the main line, who's the skirmishers, who's the flanks, and so on. You have to set those things up, make sure, because if not, your army will fight subpar and you will get your ass kicked even by bloody barbarians. Well, yeah, and the barbarians are no longer as often, but they do come in force now. I've seen one horde go clean through the Balkan area and stop pretty much near Sarmisegetuza. And that was a fight and a half to take care of. Jesus Christ, that was a bloody one. In any case, overall, for me personally, the game, as it currently stands, isn't fun anymore for me. I'll keep an eye on it for my own purposes, for let's plays and so on. But for anybody who is disappointed with the 1.0 version, expecting more depth, more consequences and more so on, yeah, might be an idea to keep an eye on it, because it's going that way and going that way quite quickly. For people who are more in my boat, looking for something that was Europa Universalis mixed with Stellaris put in the Ancient Era. Keep an eye on it, but it's moving away from that, and I suspect by the end of things, the way they're going, at least by the end of things in terms of the vanilla game, it'll be something akin to Crusader Kings base, layered on, with a layer on top of Europa Universalis with a light sprinkle of Stellaris on top. Probabilities of how did the guys on the forums put it? Mana or magic in terms of resources that you can apply for immediate effects. Yeah, those are gonna get stripped out as much as possible by what I'm seeing. They're still in there a wee bit, but they're getting stripped out. So yeah, overall, worth keeping an eye on. Thank you for watching, or more precisely surviving up until this point, because guys know the editing's kinda interesting and my voice has a melodic tone to it. If you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button, like button. It does help out the statistics of the channel, gets more visible, you know, stuff like that. And to be honest, at one point I would like to actually make this a job so I can do better content with better quality, more games, more coverage, you know, stuff like that. Take care.